Tonight in 9 News, Grand Slam. Novak's family claim he's being held captive as Kyrgios gives Australia a backhand. A noisy crowd of supporters rally outside his detention hotel, calling for the tennis champ's release. Victorians who test positive on a rapid test now required to self-report to the health department. A shopping centre roof caves in as heavy rain soaks Melbourne. A jogger attacked on a Parkville oval, accused of running too close to a family. And Australia piles on the pain for England, but at last the tourists have some luck.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Dougal Beattie.
Good evening. As Novak Djokovic prepares to spend a second night in immigration detention, his supporters, led by his mum and dad, have hit the streets of Belgrade, accusing Australia of holding the tennis star captive. But at least one legal expert believes he could be released soon and free to contest the Australian Open. Clint Stanaway has today's developments.
A world away from Rod Laver Arena and the famous Melbourne Park precinct, an eye-catching wave of resentment, anger and frustration aimed squarely at Australia. The man with the megaphone is Srđan Djokovic, Novak's father. Jesus was crucified on the cross, but he is still alive among us, he told supporters. They are trying to crucify and belittle Novak and throw him to his knees. Inside, wife Diana continued the family's campaign.
If you are a mother, you can just imagine how can I feel. I feel terrible. Since yesterday, last 24 hours, that they are keeping him as a prisoner. It's just not fair. It's not human.
She says she's spoken to Novak since he was placed in immigration detention at Carlton's notorious Park Hotel, formerly Ridges on Swanston.
Terrible. Terrible accommodation. It's just some small immigration hotel, as we can, if it's hotel at all, with some bugs, it's so dirty and the food is so terrible.
But from Novak's wife, Yelena, a more conciliatory tone. The only law that we should all respect across every single border is love and respect for another human being. Love and forgiveness is never a mistake, but a powerful force. And closer to home, more support from Nick Kyrgios. How we are handling Novak's situation is bad, really bad. This is one of our great champions, but at the end of the day, he is human. Do better. Monday is D-Day for the world number one as he fights the decision to cancel his visa in the Federal Circuit and Family Court. And according to top lawyer Justin Quill, there's a strong chance he'll get the chance to take his place at Melbourne Park.
I think the judge is going to find that there is enough of a case here to justify him being allowed to stay in the country until that case is fully heard.
But that legal challenge has done little to unsettle the federal government.
The Australian Border Force has actually been very clear. It's the fact that he was not able to meet the requirements to provide the evidence that he needed for entry into Australia.
Still, questions are being asked, like why the Serbian star was able to board a flight to Australia in the first place.
They wrote to him and said, you'll have to be double vaccinated to get into the country. Yet they still issued him a visa. That's beyond my comprehension.
So he is a victim in your eyes?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Whether he's deliberately made a victim or he's a victim because of just incompetence, I can't say.
Here at Melbourne Park, it feels as if another storm's brewing. Come Monday's court case, there's likely to be even more headaches for Tennis Australia, whatever the outcome. Particularly after this warning from the Home Affairs Minister to other players who've entered the country on the basis they've had COVID in the past 6 months.
So the Australian Border Force is investigating that now. They have been for at least the last 24 hours, in my knowledge.
As for the state government, the acting premier is adamant it wasn't told by Tennis Australia that a previous COVID infection wouldn't be grounds for a medical exemption, as communicated in these letters.
I'm advised the Victorian government officials were not aware or had not seen that correspondence.
And already there's been some angst on site, with this poster landing a spectator in a spot of bother. Hopefully not a sign of things to come once the Open eventually rolls around.
I hope that he will win.
Clint Stanaway, 9 News.
Local Djokovic fans have rallied behind the world number one at the Carlton Hotel where he's being held. Lana Murphy is there for us tonight. Lana, Serbian government officials have also weighed in.
Dougal, the Serbian Foreign Minister has called an urgent meeting with the Australian ambassador demanding that the world #1 tennis player be moved to better accommodation. In his words, it must be befitting of the world's best sportsman, not an illegal immigrant or a criminal. But of course, Novak Djokovic can leave the country whenever he pleases. He just won't be able to re-enter for 3 years, and he wants to play and win the Australian Open. That's also what his supporters are after. Despite the rain, they're still into their 6th hour of demonstrating outside this detention facility. A song for Serbia's national treasure. Detained on Orthodox Christmas Day.
Enjoy your Christmas behind those bars where you can't even breathe properly.
Far from the stands, this chorus of fans took the chants to Swanston Street. Draped in their country's colours, they were in full voice for their hero.
You kept him in a refugee centre. He's not a refugee, he's not a criminal, he haven't done nothing.
But Border Force officers disagree, and for 3 more days, this detention centre will be the world #1's home. Guarded by police and given very few of his belongings, his room beside 24 asylum seekers, some who've been imprisoned for 9 years.
Free, free, refugees!
It was their supporters who were drowned out by the rowdy red, blue and white crowd.
Free, free, refugees!
Let Djokovic play!
Many were patriotic.
Darling, I will give him my kidney if that needed.
Others had an agenda.
How are you going to infect everyone? Because the virus is already spreading. So the reality is, free Novak and free Australia!
Supporters of the anti-vax and freedom movement gathered from noon, watched closely by small groups of police.
There's no reason why he shouldn't play. He's more immune than, most of us.
The afternoon rain sent the majority of the crowd packing, but not even that could dampen the Serbian spirits.
He will play. Well, I do think he'll play.
That decision will be made on Monday. Until then, it's Carlton's Park Hotel or back on the plane. The ball remains in Novak Djokovic's court. Lana Murphy, 9 News.
In an Australian first, Victorians who are positive after a rapid antigen test are now required to report to the Health Department. The new system is part of a shift towards COVID self-management to ease the pressure on the hospital system. Medical reporter Emily Rice.
Our overloaded testing clinics have just joined the Rat Pack, handing out thousands of free rapid antigen tests to those lining up to then take home and self-swab.
There aren't pallets of tests at testing stations you can drive up and just help yourselves. This is people being allocated one rapid antigen test when they turn up for a test at one of our PCR testing sites.
The pandemic response is transitioning away from a state-run test, trace and isolate system to a self-management model.
Many people, they'll be able to manage their illness themselves at home.
In an Australian first, Victorians who test positive to COVID via a self-swab at home are themselves responsible for letting the Health Department know. The infection self-reporting function is now live on the Victorian Government's coronavirus website.
There are 9 really simple questions that will ask you when you register your positive rapid antigen test result.
These include, have you been in contact with someone who has COVID? Have you been unwell with COVID symptoms? And how many doses of the vaccine have you received, if any? Given positive test results diagnosed at home will now be counted in addition to official PCR infections, means a likely spike in the numbers tomorrow. But the COVID commander refuses to play COVID caseload guessing games.
I don't gamble, so we'll be very happy to report tomorrow what number of both PCR results we've processed and the number of rat tests that are coming through.
For a consecutive day, official case figures tipped over 21,000, with 6 deaths.
These are numbers that are unthinkable even 2 or 3 weeks ago, so we're all having to adjust rapidly to a changing situation.
Coronavirus hospitalisations have increased to 644, with 58 in ICU. The Royal Melbourne Hospital reminding those who catch COVID you need not go to hospital unless in respiratory distress.
Where we want to see you is if you're finding it difficult to breathe, or if a loved one of yours has COVID and is finding it difficult to breathe, becoming confused, unable to get up.
In New South Wales, there are now 1,783 COVID hospitalisations, with 38,625 new infections. Premier Perrottet has announced a raft of new restrictions, including singing and dancing bans in pubs and nightclubs.
We've always said we'll tailor our settings to the circumstance that we face. space.
The owner of newly opened Bar Bambi in the city says patron limits are the last thing the struggling industry needs right now.
All of a sudden we could be operating a venue at 25% or perhaps even less. And, you know, it's been a shocking last 2 years for the hospitality industry, and now we're faced with another, dilemma such as this.
The hospitality industry is calling on the state government to provide them with financial support to help cope with the new restrictions. As yet, though, there is no help being offered.
We're not in a position to be able to provide that business support at this stage.
Emily Rice, 9 News.
Melbourne's west and southeast have copped the brunt of an afternoon of heavy rain. As Elizabeth Moss reports, the ceiling at a Point Cook shopping centre buckled under the weight of the water.
A shopping centre shower becomes a deluge. Shoppers scream as the ceiling at Sanctuary Lakes gives way to the storm above. A wave of debris crashing to the floor.
The heavens opened, it was throwing it down with rain. The noise was horrendous. It was a really loud bang. It was horrible, yeah.
Ceiling came off and the water was fully inside the shopping centre.
The water seeping into nearby stores.
So dangerous and unbelievable.
Just down the road, a makeshift skylight at the BP and part of this car yard roof ripped off. From Laverton to Frankston, where shoppers at Coringal Hub had to be evacuated. Severe storm warnings issued throughout the afternoon, streets becoming rivers. This Point Cook road disappearing in the deluge as winds of up to 150 kilometres ripped through. The SES has responded to more than 600 calls for help in the past 24 hours. This Hoppers Crossing home soaked. The family forced to move their furniture into the garage. In Altona, this backyard, now a swimming pool, with more where that came from.
Lizzie, a thunderstorm warning is still in place.
It is, Dougal. It's actually just passed through here where we are in Point Cook. You can probably see a little bit of that rain forming a bit of a lake behind us in the car park here. It is expected to hit the city in the next couple of minutes. So damaging winds, heavy rainfall and the potential for some quite large hailstones there. We expect it is going to move throughout the east of the state, hitting sort of Ringwood, Greensborough and Doncaster by around 6:45 tonight. So Dougal, if you are not already at home, stay indoors, get home, rug up because it is going to be a long night.
Good advice, Lizzie Moss, thank you. Detectives have made a major breakthrough over a fatal hit run at Hampton Park. Police released security pictures this afternoon of a man running at Glen Waverley before torching a stolen Holden Cruise nearby. In the past hour, they arrested a 29-year-old suspect after he turned himself in. 58-year-old cyclist Soleil Manapore was mown down at a Hallam Road intersection early yesterday morning. An angry father, concerned about the threat of COVID, has attacked a stranger in Parkville for getting too close to his family. The stunned victim has told Adam Hegarty he was just going for a run.
Morning exercise isn't normally a precursor to violence, but these are tense times. Knees and kicks to the face. And all, it seems, over social distancing. The man pummeled to the ground is Simone. He says he was doing laps of McAllister Oval at Parkville yesterday morning when he got too close for comfort. The couple ordering him to keep his distance from them and their 2 children. He couldn't believe it.
I was so far away from them, and this guy deliberately hit me without any reason. It was pretty brutal.
A passing cyclist filming part of the argument. The threat of COVID, the presumed trigger.
He came like straight at me after screaming, and he said, "Hey, stop, don't come close to my family, don't come close to my family." And I was, man, take it easy. I got it's a park, there is a lot of space.
You can hear the youngest of that family in the video. Police at this stage are not investigating the incident because there hasn't been an official complaint, while 9 News has spoken to the person who filmed the confrontation, and he says he's shocked by the heated exchange.
They were saying to me that I was a danger for the community, that I should stay away from them, and I really don't know why. I was just running. It's a disgrace, honestly.
Adam Hegarty, 9 News.
It's back to work for Daniel Andrews. The Victorian Premier returns from leave on Monday after a month away from the spotlight. He's attended national cabinet meetings in that time, but his last official day of work was December 10. Clint Stanaway is here now with a look ahead to sport.
Thanks, Dougal. Good to see you. Tonight in sport, Scott Boland has been a busy boy at the SCG. The Big Vic grabbing a very important scalp as England fell in a heap.
Gone! Great catch, Smith, just before the lunch break, and Boland has two.
Also tonight, another warning shot from Ash. Our world number one means business this summer. Footy's back, the Saints and Tigers to kick off the AFLW season, and finally something for long-suffering Knicks fans to cheer about. That's all coming up in sport tonight, Dougal.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Clint. A learner driver charged after a stolen car crashed and burst into flames at Albert Park Lake. Staff shortages and bare supermarket shelves, how it could affect the price of groceries. And Joe Biden lets fly at Donald Trump a year after the Capitol riots.
News has no agenda. It can be frightening, devastating, uplifting. Don't just hear the news. Don't just see the news. Trust the news. This is Melbourne's 9 News.
A learner driver is facing charges accused of crashing a stolen car into a tree before it burst into flames at Albert Park on Sunday morning. Witnesses say the Holden Astra sped past cyclists along Lakeside Drive and veered off the road. The occupants had to be pulled from the wreck. All three were hospitalised. The 19-year-old Hastings woman behind the wheel has been charged with theft and traffic offences. The federal government today met with supermarkets to develop new arrangements for close contacts who provide essential service. But with thousands of supply chain workers in isolation, shoppers are being warned food shortages could last for weeks. Fiona Willan reports.
While supermarket shelves are running bare, there's plenty of food in this Gold Coast warehouse, at risk of going to waste.
If we can't sell it, we'll be dumping it. The cost is going to be huge.
Jeff Godden has delivery drivers ready to go, but the retail and hospitality businesses that buy the goods have been crippled by worker shortages, with many in isolation because they have COVID or are close contacts.
We're starting to see our customer base shut down in droves.
The fear is that it'll probably get worse in the next couple of weeks as more people return to work.
Jeff fears his workforce is heading the same way.
The biggest fear for me is that we actually get shut down because we can't get enough people in the business to operate it.
And many who supply food are in the same boat.
Right through the supply chain is being impacted at the moment. It has the potential to be decimated.
The workforce shortages have left stores around Australia low on supplies, prompting warnings your grocery bill could get higher.
We will start to see naturally prices increase, particularly in this fresh produce areas and particularly meat as well.
In a bid to get workers back on the job, food suppliers are calling for changes to close contact rules.
One of the solutions must be that the isolation rule be scrapped.
Instead, they want free rapid antigen tests for the industry, although those are also in short supply.
The cost of inaction from this government is that supermarket shelves are being left empty.
Woolworths has told customers that its workforce is down 20% in distribution centres and 10% in stores due to COVID-driven absences, leading to gaps on its shelves. Today, the federal government held crisis talks with major supermarkets to work on new rules for close contacts who provide essential services.
It's an important piece of work and we're going to rapidly develop and implement that over the next couple of days.
While on a day out at the cricket for the Prime Minister, commentary turned to COVID.
This is Australia living with the virus. Look it out there, and Australians taking wickets in the virus.
Others feel the ball has been dropped.
This is not living with COVID.
Fiona Willan, 9 News.
1 year on from the Capitol riots that shook America to its core, President Joe Biden has launched a scathing attack on Donald Trump, warning a web of lies continues to undermine democracy. More from Amelia Adams.
God bless
On the steps of the People's House, a prayer and a moment's silence for those who died protecting it.
1 year ago today, in this sacred place, democracy was attacked.
Lawmakers recalling their terror as the mob breached the building.
Their supporters insist that this is the People's House and they are here to reclaim it. They've just smashed open the door.
I viscerally feel the pounding on the gallery doors. I hear the shot ringing out.
5 people were killed and 140 police officers injured in the violence.
I went through the whole Rolodex of emotions. Now I'm just angry.
President Biden taking aim at the man who rallied the mob to march on the Capitol.
We didn't see a former president sitting in a private dining room off the Oval Office in the White House, watching it all on television and doing nothing. And because his bruised ego matters more to him than our democracy or our Constitution.
Donald Trump cancelled a planned media conference to mark today's anniversary, instead lashing out at Democrats in a series of statements. This political theatre is all just a distraction for the fact Biden has completely and totally failed. That's what you get when you have a rigged election.
He can't accept he lost.
Trump's Washington allies today doubling down on claims of election fraud and conspiracy.
January 6th last year wasn't an insurrection, but it very well may have been a Fedsurrection.
The only Republicans attending today's commemorations, former Vice President Dick Cheney with his daughter Liz, who was ostracised from the GOP for criticising Donald Trump. 1 year on, the former president maintains a firm grip on the Republican Party. He'll hold his first political rally of the year next weekend, setting the scene for the midterm elections and putting himself centre stage. More than 700 people have been charged in connection with the Capitol attack. A House committee is investigating what led to the violence and how to prevent it from happening again.
And I will allow no one to place a dagger at the throat of democracy.
In the United States, Amelia Adams, 9 News.
An 8-year-old girl has died after strong winds blew a jumping castle several metres into the air at a fair in Spain. 9 other children were injured, prompting fresh calls for better safety regulations for the structures worldwide. Last month, 6 children were killed during a similar tragedy in Tasmania. The United Nations has warned Moscow it must respect its neighbours' sovereignty after Russia sent a peacekeeping mission to Kazakhstan. The deployment follows deadly protests which killed 13 police officers, left hundreds injured and destroyed buildings. The unrest was sparked by a rise in fuel prices. And a highway patrolman in the American state of Wyoming doing roadside checks in the snow watched one truck pass and another one approach when he suddenly realised he was right in the path of a runaway SUV. He jumped one way and then the other as the vehicle careered past. He is now counting his blessings. Madeline Slattery joins us now with more on the weather. It's felt more like Queensland today, Maddie.
It really has, Dougal. If you're missing out on a tropical holiday, Mother Nature's been bringing that tropical weather to us. The stormy conditions continued today. More than 45,000 lightning strikes were observed within 100 kilometres of Melbourne before mid-afternoon. And as we heard earlier, severe storms are currently moving from Melbourne's west. So far, storms have delivered 45 millimetres at Werribee, 51 millimetres at Point Cook, 16 millimetres falling in 3 minutes there early this afternoon. And in the southeast, there's been 28 at Rosebud. Further out, Mount Buffalo has recorded the most today with 53 millimetres. There is some good news though, Dougal. I'll have all the details for a calmer weekend later in the bulletin.
Sounds good. Thanks, Maddie. We'll see you soon. Melbourne's rental market is tightening. Next, the suburbs where you're most likely to find one and where it's tough. A 7-year court battle over a cake comes to an end, and following a GPS takes a delivery driver on a white-knuckle ride. No charges will be laid over the controversial 2019 closure of iCook Foods despite allegations of sabotage and evidence tampering. 41 people lost their jobs when the health department ordered its shutdown after the catering business was linked to the death of an elderly woman. Management accused a Dandenong Council environment officer of planting a slug in the kitchen as evidence. They're still pursuing a civil case. Finding a place to rent has become harder, with less than 2% of houses and apartments across the country available. As property reporter Chris Kohler explains, the pandemic is partly to blame for the shortage.
For renters, the property market is darkening. This $1,200 a week South Bank apartment is just one of a handful now available in the city in what's become a drought of rental homes.
Many of our areas are quite frankly in a rental crisis.
Less than 2 out of every 100 rental properties in Australia is vacant.
It is near on impossible for a renter to secure a property.
In Melbourne, the hardest place to find a rental is the Mornington Peninsula. Just 0.4% of those properties are available. It's a similar story in Cardinia, the Yarra Ranges, Sunbury and Frankston. Meanwhile, the most available rental markets are closer in, places like leafy Stonington, Whitehorse, Burundurra and Banyule.
The biggest change is happening in the CBD. It looks like a ghost town on the street, but people are moving into the apartments above. This time last year, about 15% of them were empty. Now that's more like 4%.
City agent Lillian Kwan says some are now being snapped up sight unseen.
Earlier at the start of the COVID, we have around about 170 properties. Now we're looking about 30 to 40 properties.
Rents became cheaper during the pandemic and many in share houses moved out on their own, leaving less on the market. And it's expected to tighten further.
Once those international borders reopen and we see an influx of overseas migrants and foreign students, we are going to see greater demand for rental properties.
Chris Kohler, 9 News.
An incredibly lucky truck driver in China should buy a lottery ticket after his semi-trailer became stuck between a rock and a very hard place, dangling precariously off a cliff face. Losing his way while making a delivery, his GPS directed him onto the narrow path. Both he and his passenger managed to scramble to safety, but it took 3 days to haul the vehicle off the edge. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has slammed anti-vaccination campaigners as he pushes his booster rollout, but he still says he wants the jab to be voluntary.
The people who are putting this mumbo-jumbo on social media, they are completely wrong. And you haven't heard me say that before.
1 in 15 people in England are predicted to have COVID. The epicentre is now moving from London to the country's northwest. A court battle over a cake that's lasted almost a decade in Northern Ireland has finally come to an end. A Belfast bakery was sued over its refusal to make it for a gay wedding. Brett McLeod has the story.
Take a gay activist, mix in a bakery run by a family with strong Christian beliefs, add a Bert and Ernie cake, and the temperature in this recipe went way up. In 2014, Gareth Lee went to Ash's Bakery in Belfast asking for a cake featuring the Sesame Street characters and a logo of the campaign group Queer Space. The bakery refused the order, saying it was contrary to their Christian beliefs.
All I wanted was to order a cake in a shop that sold cakes.
Mr. Lee first challenged in Northern Ireland's Equality Commission, which found he had been discriminated against. That was overturned by Britain's Supreme Court.
We always knew we hadn't done anything wrong in turning down this order.
So Mr. Lee made a last-ditch appeal to the European Court of Human Rights. The court said of Northern Ireland, there is a large and strong faith community, and it's where LGBTIQ community has endured a history of considerable discrimination and intimidation. But throughout Mr. Lee's application, because he hadn't argued his human rights in Britain's courts, because he had failed to exhaust domestic remedies, the application was inadmissible. The decision has been welcomed by Christian groups and Northern Ireland's First Minister, but it's left human rights and gay activist groups with a sour taste. In London, Brett McLeod, 9 News.
Up next, the low-cost way to reduce the risk of falls and fractures in aged care. How one lucky winner plans to spend his $60 million Powerball jackpot. And don't mess with the boss, 87-year-old Jan notches up a 3rd footy club life membership. Friday finance and the share market has rebounded, but the Australian dollar remains weak. Here's Chris Collar again.
The share market was crunched yesterday but regained some ground today. The ASX lifted 1.3% with healthy rebounds from big banks, miners and Telstra. Despite yesterday's tumble, they finished the week higher than where they started it. There was a big exception to the rebound, and it was a company called Australian Pharmaceutical Industries, which owns Priceline Pharmacies. Woolworths had said it wanted to buy the company for $872 million. But today they decided against it. The shares plummeted 12% as a result. And the Australian dollar finishes the week lower. It's buying 71 US cents, 63 euro cents and 53 British pence.
A Brisbane man in his 30s plans to buy his first house, help out his family and friends and go on plenty of holidays after taking home $60 million in last night's Powerball draw. The Queenslander held the only Division 1 winning entry across the country, and although there's lots of travel on the agenda, he still plans to turn up to work. There's a safe and cheap way of tackling the problem of falls and fractures among aged care residents. As Gabriella Rogers explains, researchers have found simply boosting dairy intake can significantly reduce their risk.
They're rich in calcium and protein, palatable and low cost. Now proof they're potent weapons to combat frailty in our aged care residents.
The key thing with this intervention is we just use food. So we use milk, cheese and yogurt that's readily available in any supermarket. 60
Australian aged care centres took part in the 2-year study. Residents at 30 sites were given more dairy, from 2 to 3.5 servings each day. That boost reduced the risk of falls by 11%, fractures by 33% and hip fractures by half.
This is a great way to add another intervention to reduce the risk. We can see that across that whole group, we reduce the bone loss, we reduce the muscle loss.
Researchers say boosting dairy intake is better than using supplements.
The next step is to translate this into practice so that it's part of policy and part of practice.
Meanwhile, this is the commonly prescribed gold standard treatment for reducing fractures in older Australians. It's a class of medication called bisphosphonates. It not only protects the bone, it can also reduce the risk of pneumonia. Now, Govan researchers have uncovered how. In experiments, they traced the drug and found it stimulated immune cells in the lungs.
These immune cells engulf and destroy pathogens that infect the lung and cause pneumonia. This is a good reason for patients to continue taking bisphosphonate therapy.
Whether it can help protect against coronaviruses, research is continuing. Gabriella Rogers, NBN News.
The AFLW competition resumes this evening, highlighting just how far women have come in the footy world. Their time to shine is thanks to trailblazers like Jan Mildenhall, who has helped run clubs for decades. Alan Raskell met her.
She was ahead of her time. 87-year-old Jan Mildenhall has been involved with footy clubs since her early teens, when her brother asked her to help in the canteen. What do you love about footy?
Administration.
You love the administration?
Being the boss.
Being the boss? You're a boss lady. Jan was one of the first female secretaries of a footy club and has gone on to become a life member of 3, Chelsea, Tura and Morty Alec.
I don't think I'm one that goes around bragging and carrying on, but I'm inside, I'm really, really thrilled.
The mother of 9 knows how to run a tight ship. Morty Alec loves what she's brought to their club.
She greets everybody as they walk through the door. She makes everybody feel welcome, but she also makes sure that everybody knows the rules around the place.
Young players look up to her.
I remember her helping out when the juniors first started here. I was in under-9s then, coming through Auskick.
Today's footy heroes owe a lot to women like Jan. Daughter Michelle, proud of her mum's trailblazing ways.
She was in there, guns blazing. She didn't care, you know. She'd walk into the footy rooms while the boys were getting changed and they go, oh. She goes, oh, I've seen it before, don't worry about it.
Now, despite the fact Jan has been kicking goals for women in footy for decades, she tells me she's never really kicked a footy. That is until now. Go for it, Jan! How'd you go?
Good.
Yay! Alan Roskell, 9 News.
Great story. Clint Stanaway is next with sport.
Hi, Dougal. Thanks so much for that. After the break in sport, Boland proves he's no one-hit wonder as the tourists fall into a very familiar hole. Ash serves up a near-perfect performance in Adelaide and the three-pointer that sent New York crazy. Welcome back to the cricket. First up, and Australia has a firm grip on the fourth Ashes test with Boxing Day hero Scott Boland causing even more chaos at the SCG. The Victorian has so far claimed 2 wickets, including that of Joe Root, while Johnny Bairstow notched a ton. England still in plenty of strife at 7 for 258 at stumps. Luke Duffsey has the highlights.
Pink ponchos were prized possessions for Jane McGrath Day. Rain rolling in again, delaying the first ball by 2 hours. Alex Carey wasn't quite ready for the restart.
Hamid edges, Carey puts it down.
So in his next over, Mitchell Starc did it all himself.
Bowled him!
That dismissal sparking an all too familiar English collapse.
Bowled him! Boland gets his first one at the SCG.
He didn't wait long for his second.
Gone! Great catch, Smith.
Captain Root out for a duck, Scott Boland taking 2 wickets before conceding a run. The Boxing Day Test hero worshipped in Sydney just like he was in his hometown Melbourne. When Green caught Milan in a trap just before lunch...
Oh, it's out. Well, there you go.
The tourists had lost 3 for none. In fact, they failed to score for 70 balls. An edge single celebrated like a 6.
And the cheers go around the Sydney Cricket Ground.
A wounded Ben Stokes attempted to launch a fight back.
That's a good shot. Down the ground.
But was living dangerously, given out, only to be saved on review by a bail that appeared to be bolted on.
It hit the stump hard. First of all, let's worry about the stump. How has the bail not been removed?
Oh, that's a solid blow.
How bizarre was that?
That's hit the stump quite hard.
Stokes made the most of his luck.
Oh, heave, it'll be 3 in a row.
Passing 50 for the first time this series, combining with Johnny Bairstow to finally give England a meaningful partnership.
Sweet slog into the deep, and that'll go into the crowd.
Boland's charmed run ending with this fall, which saw him taken to hospital for scans, leaving Lyon to claim the breakthrough wicket.
Oh, that's close. Yes, give it.
Stokes gone on 66. Bairstow was battered by Cummins but played through the pain, showing the fight England has been missing all summer.
And over the top. Don't worry about the man out in the field.
Mark Wood contributed some valuable lower order runs, but it was Bairstow who held the innings together, bringing up a thoroughly deserved 100 late in the day.
An incredible moment for Johnny Bairstow.
Luke Duffsey, 9 News.
Still on the cricket and unlucky Victorian opener Will Pucovski is eyeing selection in Australia's upcoming tour of Pakistan ahead of his return to cricket after a year on the sidelines. The 23-year-old had been in the Ashes frame before a 10th concussion derailed those chances.
You're going to get hit, like I'm going to get hit again in my career. If you face balls and hopefully face a lot of balls, it's just bound to happen.
Back in training for the past month, Pucovski has been given the all-clear, but a shoulder injury that ruined his debut test still lingers.
I haven't quite worked out how I'm going to field with that yet, so I sort of wanted a couple of club games to work that out because I still can't really throw properly or anything.
He will suit up for the Melbourne Cricket Club at Premier level tomorrow. Ash Barty looks back to her best following a dominant win over former Australian Open champion Sophia Kenin in Adelaide. The Aussie won at 6-3, 6-4 and says the signs are really good ahead of that tilt at Melbourne Park Glory. More from Braden Ingram.
On court for a good time, not a long time.
Oh, yes.
Barty was waiting in that corner of the court.
Ash slamming down 17 aces in a brutal serving display. And along with the deft touch, she was firing on all cylinders.
And they'll do nicely. Emphatic set of tennis from the world #1.
Showing no mercy towards Sophia Kenin, it was over in a flash.
Oh, got it again! Brilliant movement from Barty and the control up the line, exceptional.
Aside from some fortune on match point, there was nothing lucky about Barty's clinical win. She's hoping it's a sign of things to come this summer.
So that's what you want. Honestly, it's nice to come out here and really be tested right from the start and know that you have to bring your very best level.
At Melbourne's summer set, Simona Halep battled through a back niggle.
Body language tells you everything you need to know.
The Wimbledon champ's frustration showed, but she dug deep to win the deciding set, while Rafael Nadal advanced to the final 4 in a walkover. And it seems you can't keep a good demon down. This 36-shot rally emblematic of Alex de Minaur's never say die attitude.
Stunning tennis from de Minaur.
Team Australia. He came from a set behind to defeat fellow young gun Ugo Humbert, with Australia eliminated from the ATP Cup. All roads now lead to Melbourne Park.
I'm feeling great. I mean, I played some great tennis. I'm feeling in the best shape I felt in my career.
Braden Ingram, 9 News.
The new AFLW season kicks off tonight, and with it a tightening of COVID protocols. Given the explosion of cases, players and staff have been told to avoid indoor events with more than 100 people. But it's done very little to dampen the atmosphere at Frankston, where the Saints and Tigers are set to do battle.
It's been a pretty long time since we last played a game of footy. Obviously there's a few nerves down in the room, but it's mostly just excitement.
It is one of 7 matches scheduled across this weekend. Aussie golf star Cam Smith has started the new year with a bang. The 28-year-old is currently leading the lucrative Tournament of Champions in Hawaii after carding an 8-under par 65 in the opening round.
Remote chance from a remote spot, but geez, I must have forgot it was putting.
And in New York today, a grandstand finish between the Knicks and Celtics.
Get a shot up. This is for the win. Oh, it's good! Off the window!
New York pinching a 3-point win. That's the latest sport for this Friday, Dougal.
And great to have you back, Clint.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, Madeline is back now with the weather, and will things improve for the weekend, Maddie?
It's going to be much calmer, Dougal, so while lightning strikes like this one were the theme of today, thankfully they're not likely to be back tomorrow. It will be a warm night to lead into the weekend, but daytime temperatures will feel a fair bit cooler. I'll have the details next. Hello again. It's been a turbulent Friday. After a hot night, only dipping to 20 degrees, the city peaked at 26, but the humidity made it feel very uncomfortable. Thunderstorms continue to spark up across much of Victoria today, with severe storms mostly impacting the southwest and central districts. But mid-afternoon, 45,000 lightning strikes were registered within 100 kilometres of Melbourne, with nearly 4,000 reaching the ground. Storms over Melbourne's west triggered intense downpours at times, with up to 16 millimetres of rain falling in 3 minutes and 52 millimetres of rain since 9 a.m. And a number of places have experienced flash flooding and large hailstones. 2 supercell storms are currently moving over the Melbourne area as well as the Healesville area, and a severe thunderstorm warning is currently in place for these areas here in orange, with the potential for destructive winds, giant hailstones and heavy rain. In good news, storms will become less likely later tonight, and tomorrow we can expect much more settled conditions. There will be a few storms in the northeast tomorrow afternoon. They're likely to be very isolated and are only expected to trigger some localised short heavy showers, so not the severe conditions that we're currently experiencing. Now, this trough has been causing the unsettled weather, and it will cross the state, and southerly winds will move in behind it, so we will say goodbye to the humidity, and it will also be much cooler. Sunday is looking a lot nicer with extra sunshine and more settled conditions across the board. Tomorrow there'll be light isolated showers or drizzle about southern districts, just a millimetre or 2 for most places, up to 5 at Mount Hotham, with potential storms about the eastern ranges in the afternoon. It'll be another warm night with minimums mostly in the mid to high teens statewide. Then a warm, dry and mostly sunny day across northern Victoria. Mildura and Swan Hill are both heading for 32 degrees, 28 or 29 elsewhere along the Murray. A partly cloudy day in the south. Sale is heading for 25. Otherwise, maximums will mostly be in the low 20s, 19 for both Warrnambool and Aireys Inlet. Showers will ease overnight in Melbourne, then just a chance of lingering showers in the morning, 1 or 2 millimetres at best, before much cooler maximums of 21 or 22. Tomorrow, the city is heading for 21 degrees with a shower or 2 in the morning. Things clear up by Sunday, a partly cloudy day and 24 degrees, then warming up 29 on Monday, and the nights will stay very warm too. 27 on Tuesday with a shower or 2. We'll see the humidity return with unstable air around, so there could be a thunderstorm as well. Similar conditions for Wednesday, 28 degrees, 29 on Thursday and 26 on Friday. But tonight, isolated storms will continue with a shower or 2 in the morning. It'll be a warm night too, dipping to 18 degrees, then a top of 21, so a good chance for us all to cool down, Dougal.
Glad to hear it. Thanks, Maddie. And that is 9 News for this Friday. Sylvia Jeffries is up next with the current affair. From all of us, have a great weekend and good night.